Do I call you Sir, by the way? Start with Sir Lewis Hamilton, or is it, are you Sir yet? Has this
No, I
happened
don't.
yet? No.
I don't even know. I don't even.
What does it feel like? Does it,
Well, I think I'm weird. Just the same thing as when I got home and got a call from. I think my dad told me that we got a call from Ron Dennis asking to sponsor you at 13, and just went up to my room to do my own work, you know. So I think it's definitely yeah, it definitely feels. It's definitely overwhelming, I think, if you really think about it. But then you forget about it, and then I walk around. I don't remember that I'm. So I think it's more from the outside what it looks like.
yeah, because kids growing up, if they look in a history book or they look in a record book, they're going to see Sir Lewis Hamilton, currently 7-time world champion.
Yeah.
What do you want the words that follow that to say? If there are kids opening a book and seeing your name there, what would you like it to say after that?
I don't really know. I haven't really thought about it. Probably maybe game changer or voice for equality or something like that. Maybe, I don't know.
Did you know your Wikipedia now says Formula One world champion, activist, musician and fashion designer?
No way.
Yeah, it does.
I don't think I've ever seen my Wikipedia. So.
But it's cool, right? That people see you. I mean, how do you fit it all in? How do you manage all that?
With great difficulty. You know, it doesn't come easy. I think naturally people probably work hard to make things maybe look, well, they appear different, easier maybe than it is, but with great difficulty. And with, I've got a great team around me, but I would say I'm a lot busier than probably any driver's ever really been. And finding the right balance, I would say, is probably the hardest thing, because you never want to arrive and people say, oh, the reason you didn't perform is because you're distracted by all these other things, which is an easy cop-out for people to attack you with. If you look at, along the way, a lot of these different things that I've done, like when I was in New York doing a fashion show and then I flew over and everyone from even to Nikki was like, you can't do that. And then I put in that qualifying lap, which kind of breaks that mold, and then everyone's like, actually, oh yes you can. And that's what I think it's really about, is breaking molds.
We've learnt that. We've learnt that. I think the media do jump on and say, look, he's flying here, there and everywhere, and then you turn up at a racetrack and turn it on and everyone's like, okay,
Yeah.
we get it. Does that...
Well, I care to do the job. That's
Yeah.
my primary goal. I wouldn't be able to do all these other things if it wasn't for that, for racing. So it's ultimately down to me to know the boundaries and the limits and how far I can go, and know that I can't be staying up crazy late and out partying or whatever it may be. And just bit by bit, I just build up strength, and then if I've got space, I'll add something else that I'm interested in. And when I know that I've got an event coming up, that always falls to the side, and I have a team that can take on that stuff. That's been kind of the strategy.
Ultimately, it looks like that helps you at the race weekends as well, though, because you find I saw on your Instagram you said you're still searching for a purpose, but it's like you're finding all these things along the way, and actually they're making you into the whole person you are now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, like, you know, I'm only human, just like all of us. I think we're all trying to navigate through this beautiful thing called life, but it is difficult for everyone. It doesn't matter where you are at in life or where you've come from. We all face our own journeys and difficulties, and so yeah, I'm trying to do my best, trying to be the best version of myself, trying to grow as much as I can, and at the right pace. And been a lot of trial and error, and I think there's been a lot of experiences when I was younger, and even when I first got to Formula One, of what you can and cannot do, and a lot of when people often say you cannot, that's kind of a version of suppressing you. And so I've been experimenting with all these different types of kind of creative outlets, things that I'm passionate about. There's so much that I want to do, and just almost feels like almost not enough time, even though there is time. But you know, like everyone, they want everything now, and you just got to plan it out, be patient.
It's funny you mentioned creativity, because I was looking at that and looking at that side of your personality, and then thinking, it kind of is in contradiction to what you do on the track because it's so technical and so focused. But then thinking about it, you almost create your race weekend and your race result. Is that going to sound really weird to you?
No, definitely not. It's definitely, it's an art form what we do. So I don't know if people look at it that way, but it is really an art form. You know, it's like if you look at a painter who's trying to find his stroke. That's the same thing with us as drivers. We're constantly trying to find and finesse the car, and I guess you're creating, as you're doing a lap, you're creating on the way. I definitely think it's a creative outlet, especially when you're trying to, you're trying to be creative with your setup. You're trying to be creative with understanding what can and can't be done with the car. Coming up with ideas of reforming the steering wheel, redesigning your pedals, and redesigning your seat, and the aero package that you have, where is best to use it, etc. And then working with a team to mold that. So there is a huge creative aspect.
And the improvising in the wet, for example, and things like that. You're thinking all the time of...
Yeah. I mean, there's no written way of doing that. And a lot of people would have said for a lot of things that I've come across, like, don't go to Mercedes. Most people would have said that. Probably 90+% people would have said that. But that was, for me, that was my kind of opportunity to have a chance to be creative, to grow with a team that's perhaps not at the front, but has the potential to be at the front. To get back some of my time, some of my image rights, and be able to do these other things that I do. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without this team.
It's funny because I was asked the other day, what's the most memorable moment for you of Lewis's career? And straight away I thought to the 7th win in Turkey, and then I thought, actually, I think it's that shot of you walking away in Singapore from your McLaren, then ultimately the decision to move to Mercedes. Because
well, that wasn't the time that I made the decision. Yeah, people think it was the time when my gearbox failed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't the moment. But people seem to, for some reason, someone made that up. It was quite a bit after that. I don't know how much longer after that it was, but I was in Thailand when I actually made the decision.
But it felt like that decision is kind of the most memorable moment for me, in the sense that everyone said, what are you doing? And actually that was a really bold, brave decision in my eyes for you to make that. You obviously knew more on the inside and you'd spoken to people, but people on the outside, they'd have looked and thought, what are you doing? But you completely proved everybody wrong.
I would argue that last year was the bravest.
Really? Why?
Yeah, well, because I think for one of the very few people of color within our sport to be able to voice out your feelings and be open about experiences you've had, and not be sure, not be sure of the criticism or the backlash that might come from that if it's interpreted the wrong way. And I'm sure you can empathize, as a woman in a male-dominated sport. I mean, I can only imagine the challenges you would have faced. And you, for sure, would have had to be quiet when you've taken certain flack or whatever it may have been. And now we live in a space where we can be more open about it, and no one has the right to tell us to shut up anymore. And I think that's super empowering,
There's not enough compassion in the world right now, is there?
That's exactly bang on the point, We need to, I don't think that we're born without empathy and compassion. It's something that's taught through the whole weird society that we live in today. But I think it's down to education, really. And that's what where it all needs to change. I worry about, like, for kids, for my niece and nephew, the world that we're now in, that we've created. Social media and all these different things, it's harder than ever, I think, for a kid to grow up. Even harder than, I think, when we were young. However, I think they are more conscious of the impact that we're having in the world. I think they're hopefully more outspoken. But we've left them a mess, that's for sure.
What are you hoping from the foundation? I know it was part of the contract to do this foundation dedicated to diversity and inclusion. What are your hopes for that? What would you like to see happen?
I want to see real change. I think what I've experienced working in this sport is that a lot of organizations that are obviously often money driven, their causes are usually just kind of tagged on to the bottom. So we also recycle, or we also do sustainability, but do we really? And it's now, because people are speaking out about these things, such as diversity and inclusion, it's becoming more and more a priority. So now all of a sudden you're seeing all news outlets, you're seeing all brands now starting to make their, make sure that when they're presenting their brand, whether it's using models or representatives, it's more mixed. You know, and everyone's doing it now, and it's so visible to see, and it's like, why didn't you do that before? Naturally, but I think for me it's really, in our sport, there's thousands of people naturally in our sport. There are still people that don't believe diversity is an issue. You've got the once leader of our sport who doesn't believe diversity is an issue in our industry, and naturally it trickles down from the leader. So, you know, I hope that I think we've got better minded people now that are running the sport. But I think it's seeing a more, you know, a sport that's reflective of the world outside in future, that also uses its platform for positivity, which I don't think it's ever done in the past.
How important was it to have that in your contract with Mercedes? I mean, you've got an association with them going back 23 years now. You've been very loyal to them. How important was it that they return that loyalty? And
yeah, I think it was really important, and I think it was a natural progression for us. Being that I've been with Mercedes for such a long time, I've been saying that I want to do something far greater than just winning championships for you. You know, what was much more for us to do outside in our impact, and so I'm really proud of them for being open-minded to change, because I think that's the first part of it. It's having that uncomfortable conversation. It's opening our minds up and holding ourselves accountable, and then going, you know, okay, these are the steps we can take to being better. And it's never enough. You've always got to do more. And so if there's ever a point where we as a sport or as individuals think that we've done enough, then I think that's when we're failing. You know, we're always going to be learning, and there's always going to be improvements to be made. So this is just the start, and I think there's no real limit to where we can go, and you can naturally attach other things onto that. So I think it's a start to something beautiful.
What's the it's going to be really hard to answer this, I know it is, whether it's what's more important, the legacy off track or the legacy on track. What does the future look like for you? Because everyone's talking about this 1-year deal, but what does the future look like for you? What would you like it to look like?
I would like to think it's bright. I mean, I'm not one to ever really talk about legacy. Obviously, I get asked that question a lot. I think over the last few years, I've always, whilst racing's been my life, I don't want to just be remembered for that one thing. Like, this is all you can do, and that's all you was. I would hope that I'm able to do something bigger outside, and naturally I think what this has helped me create is a platform. I never thought I'd have the platform that I have, or the voice that I'm able to have and use, and the impact that I can potentially have. And so, yeah, I just want to be wise and sensible in how I use that, because this is huge responsibility as well. And I want my niece and nephew to be proud of me when they're older, and they'll be like, our uncle's been a part of that change. And you know, and then obviously one day when I have kids, I would imagine we'll definitely be after my racing career. And rather than them just knowing me as a good racer, hopefully they know that I was fighting for something much bigger than me and than us.
Just finally, I wanted to just, I saw you with your nieces and nephews in the videos. Your face always lights up, and it's lovely to see. The other time that I thought was amazing was you popped up on Insta Live one night playing your music, and you just set your phone up by your laptop, you're playing songs, and it was just a look in your face. There was a vulnerability, as if I'm showing you what I'm doing, I hope you like it kind of thing, but just the joy in your face, and it obviously genuinely is something that you really enjoy, and it was really good. I mean, I shouldn't sound surprised by that, but it was really good. You know, and it was really nice to see that side of you. Did you feel nervous putting it out there, or is that something you feel
more? Oh man, I was so nervous. I was so nervous. People would never know it, but I struggle with anxiety, and I've been doing music a long time. I never did it. I never got into it to with the goal of like putting out and be a pop star or anything like that. I just love creating, and so ever since I was like, I think I was 12, 13, I was at home strumming at home in my room, and I was trying to write down lyrics, and there was days I just, most of the time, often felt this is crap, this is no good, and then I pick it up again and just never gave up, and I do it today, and I realize it's quite therapeutic, and then I'm traveling and I play it to friends and people hear it and they're like, oh, you should do something with it or put it out, and I'm like, why are they saying that, you know? And so I remember that day, I was like, I just had this feeling came over me, like I would love my fans who I love, they're been so amazing all these years. I'd love to share with them some of this stuff because some of the beats are super cool, and I didn't make a plan is probably the thing I would have do if I went to do it again. I just was going through a list and I was nervous. I was like, okay, I'm now live, and I was just clicking on all sorts, and
the one you said I shouldn't have played you that.
yeah, I was like, oh shoot, that was super old, but yeah, I don't take it too seriously. I think it was really interesting, the positive response from the fans, and I have so much more that I'd love to like share. So maybe I'll do it at some random time. I'll do another live and show a little bit more.
Awesome. Well, it got a great reaction, and keep going. Enjoy what you do. Thank you very much, Lewis.
Thank you.
Thank you.